What's up, guys? We are back with another Turtles review, jumping back into the TMNT and Universal Monster mashups from NECA. I took a look at all of the Turtles up till now. I didn't take a look at April or Splinter, but we're definitely going to round out the Turtles because I got my hands on Donatello as the Invisible Man. So he's the one that will finish out the Turtles. We've still got Casey coming as the Phantom, and I'm assuming there's a Shredder coming down the road at some point as well. But I'm really excited to take a look at this guy. So he comes in the standard style packaging that we've seen for the line so far. So it's an Ultimate style box for NECA stuff. So you've got artwork of Donnie there on the front. You've got artwork as a cross-cell on the spine, and then the other spine has Donnie's artwork again, and then the back gives us that movie poster motif showcasing Donnie in all of, various poses and all the stuff he comes with. But being a Ultimate box, you of course get that flap so you can take a look at the figure. So pop it open, you got a big product shot of him there on the inside, and then you've got your figure there in the tray. So yeah, let's do it. Let's pull him out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Donnie as the Invisible Man. We're going to round out the core Turtles as far as this Universal Monsters mashup goes. And this guy is similar, but different from the others. Mikey's probably the one that's the most turtle-like. And you've got Leo, you've got Raph that are very, very different. Donnie is a little bit different as well. He's more human in terms of construction. Kind of like a human that has a shell on its back, essentially, because there's really not a whole lot else about this figure that screams turtle. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. It's still pretty familiar. It's very NECA when it comes to articulation. So we've got a head that can look up a little bit, down really good. You do have some tilt side to side, and you've got full rotation. Arms out at the shoulders, rotation. We've got double jointed elbows, but because of the elbow pads, it's really only 90 degrees. There is swivel at the top of the elbow there as well. It's a very, very normal NECA thing to have those sort of double joints in there that are a separate piece. And then we've got our rotation hinges at the wrist, normal stuff there. The torso is where I'm most happy with him because, well, he has a lot of movement. Like, look at the tilt on this. This is crazy. And backwards, not so much because of the shell, but forwards, there is actually a slight crunch. And then, of course, that's your swivel point, too. Like, this is one of those things I'm talking about when I say that he is very much like a human rather than a turtle. And then as far as the legs go, this is where he's mostly locked down because of the coat. So he can kick forward pretty decently, not all the way. You're not going to get him to go all the way out, but he can go some. There is a slight thigh twist up there. It's kind of hard to use because you've got to get up in there. The knees are double jointed, but they don't work that well either because of the coat. Like, you really can't get them to go back without forcing this coat up and out of the way. And even then, they're only going to go about a 90-degree bend anyway. They do have swivel at the knee, so it kind of removes the need to use the thigh swivel up there. There's also ankle swivel, and you've got pivot, and we've got really nice hinge. There's nothing in the way of these ankles on this figure, but the jacket does get in the way from the waist down. But otherwise, I think he moves pretty well, and I'm really, really happy with what they were able to do with that torso. Now, visually, there's sort of two sides to this figure for me. There's a few things about it that look overtly turtle-y, in a good way. There's also a lot of stuff here that doesn't look anything like it has anything to do with TMNT. He's very different from the others that we've gotten because the others were obviously very monstery too. So they were turtles infused with a monster. This is turtles infused with a man. So the Invisible Man is not necessarily just a monster. He's an invisible guy that's wearing clothes. So this is Donnie as the Invisible Man wearing human clothes. It obviously comes through. It definitely works, but it's maybe not as, I don't know, as visually exciting to me as the others. Like, it's not a big hulking Frankenraff. It's not a Leo with an opening storage shell, that kind of thing. Those caveats aside, I do think they got this pretty good, though. Like, there's obviously a lot of influence from both sides here. It just sort of comes down to what you really prefer. So, like, there's a few things that are quite obviously turtles here. Elbow pads, the bow staff, sash, and belt. The feet, the hands, and of course the head sculpt. The head sculpt is clearly a turtle head. If you're familiar with turtles, you know that this is not a human's head. It looks like a movie turtle head. And you've got the sort of bandage wrap all over there, which of course is Telltale Invisible Man thing. And then you've got the goggles, which do have some Donnie influence because they have a purple strap. So that's one of the ways that you can kind of identify which turtle this is, in addition to the fact that you've got the purple scarf there also. The coat, while restrictive, does look good. I mean, the sculpt is nice. It hangs well. It doesn't really get in the way of posing him too much. I mean, it does get in the way of some dynamic range, but it's not like prohibiting me from standing him up or doing most things with him. I do really like the feet because, of course, we've got translucent plastic with this guy. Not a ton, which is kind of disappointing to me. There's not tons of translucent on this guy, but we have some. And I like the usage here of the feet. You know, you've got the toes poking through there, and then you've got the bandages, which, of course, you know, is more of that Invisible Man influence. But the coolest aspect of this figure, which both good and bad, is actually the back, at least for me. Because the back of this figure, you know, of course, the back is going to be the shell, and you've also got his bow staff wrap here. So you've got the wraps, which are like little ribbons. We've seen NECA do stuff like this before, so you can cinch it across his back. But it's the shell. The sculpt is good. We've seen turtle shells for years at this point. It's the fact that it's transparent. That's awesome. I think it's a really cool idea. If they weren't going to give us tons and tons of transparent plastic on the body itself, I'm really happy that they decided to do this. Because, I mean, it's obviously a huge turtle thing. It's a unique aspect of turtle figures. Not many other figures have shells, right? And then, of course, they decided to get weird with it, as you do, and put pizza in there, because why not? So there are 3 pieces of pizza floating around in his invisible shell. And I just think it's cool. Like, that's really what it comes down to. I think this is a really cool idea. It's kind of unfortunate that it's the back because, you know, I'm not going to see it all that often. But it does look really great. And despite the fact that he is, you know, again, to me, the odd one out because he's not super monstery or anything like that, I do think they really got the idea. They mashed up a turtle and an Invisible Man pretty well. So depending on, you know, which side you're interested in, you're gonna get 2 different things here. There's obviously a lot of human components when it comes to construction on this guy, but there's a lot of turtley aspects of it. You've got his signature color, you've got turtle toes peeking out of there, you've got a shell, you've got an obviously turtle head as well. And then, of course, we've got a bunch of accessories that are clearly inspired by both versions also. Now, as far as some size comparisons go, let's start, of course, with other turtles. So we've got one of the Universal Turtles here on the left, so that's Mummy Mike, because he's the closest in size. And then we've got a movie turtle, Donatello, here on the right, since these are supposed to be the movie turtles reinterpreted. So you've got a pretty good size comparison. This Donnie is basically in line with the movie turtles. Now let's move these guys aside, and let's do the other Universal Turtles. So here is Leo, this giant meatball. And then we've got Frank and Raph here as well. And I mean, you can see that these two are obviously a lot bigger. Leo is bigger in, you know, width and depth, and Raph is a little bit taller. They're not too far apart. They're going to work really well together, but these two are definitely the larger of the bunch, and Mikey and Donnie are the smaller of the bunch. And then let's take these guys aside and let's do some other stuff. So here is a Mythic Legions figure. There's a Krampus for you. And then let's do a figure art. So here is the Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta. And then let's take Krampus aside and let's do a Hasbro figure. So here's a G.I. Joe classified figure. And let's do one more. Let's do something random. Here's an Animal Warriors of the Kingdom figure. For size comparison there. So he's very much in line with NECA, especially when it comes to normal movie turtle stuff. Obviously, Leo and Raph are the outliers, but Donnie is very much in line with the movie turtles and then lines up really well with Mikey. Now, as far as accessories goes, Donnie has a pretty solid spread. A lot of it leans more into the hands and swappable parts aspect versus things he can hold. You don't get any crazy weapons or anything like that with this guy. Not like, you know, Leo with the flaming swords or Ankh nunchucks or lightning bolt size. We don't get that kind of stuff. But there is some good stuff to be had in this package. To start with, we do get an extra head, and it's actually a head and a neck. So this is all one piece, so you pop the whole thing out, and you put this one on. And this, of course, is a very specific interpretation of the Invisible Man from a very specific scene. And you've got all the hair poking through and everything, and the head is hollow, so you can see through, and you've got the eyes, and you've got the mouth open. I do really like this one. It is kind of weird because, of course, you know, it implies that Donnie has hair here, which is really weird. This is the original head. And it has a movable neck, like I said earlier. This one doesn't. And one thing to point out now that we're talking about accessories and things you can do, you can take the goggles off, and you do have translucent eyes in there. The whole thing is translucent. It just happens to be painted, so you've got that going on, which I think is a cool little Easter egg as far as the heads. And this head also does have something else you can use with it. This head gets the hat. Of course, it can't really fit on this head because of the hair, so you've got this one, and you can put the hat on it. And I do really like this look. It works really well with those goggles. Now we do get a bunch of hands. We get, we get a lot of hands with this guy. So you get various gripping and posturing style of hands. So like you get this really wide palm, splayed finger hand. We get a pointing finger hand. You get a set of course, the set is 2. You get a set of gripping hands, tight, like relatively tight gripping hands, which makes sense because he has the bow staff. And then you get some other hands as well. You get this one that is a different kind of gripping hand, and it's a slightly different grip. And then you also get this one, which is a much wider grip because he has various things that he needs to hold. We get also some translucent parts. So you get a set of gripping translucent hands. So those are fully clear. And you get a set of translucent feet and ankles because, like I mentioned, these feet they're entirely separate parts from the legs. So they just peg into the bottom of the pants on the leg, and then you can pop these back in. These work really well, and of course it just plays up the idea of the invisible aspect. So you can get him to be a little bit more invisible with some of the stuff he comes with. Obviously if you want him to be fully invisible, just don't put him on your shelf. And then we get some other stuff that is very Invisible Man like specific. So you get the beaker with the little stirring stick. This is of course which is why we have various types of gripping hands, because you need a wider grip for this. It's actually kind of hard to show this because it's obviously 100% translucent. You get a microscope, and I'm going to give you a word of caution on this. Be careful getting this out. I actually ripped it in 2 when I pulled it out of the tray. It just didn't want to come out, and then it came out in 2 parts. So I glued it back together, kind of janky, but you've got a microscope. This is another one of those things, like with some of these figures that you get, that I frankly don't know what I would ever do with that, because I don't do dioramas, and I'm obviously not a toy photographer, so those things are kind of lost on me, but I do like the inclusions, and of course they're very specific to this mashup. I do really like this though. We get the journal, but it's a TGRI journal. Of course that's very much part of this mashup idea, so I do like that. It doesn't open or anything, it's just a single solid piece. And then, of course, we do get, because you can't have Donnie without one, we do get his bow staff. And it's decent size, it's as tall as he is, it's dirty, it's got the wraps on it, so it plays up the whole Invisible Man bandage aspect of it, but it's all dirtied and everything. And then, of course, you can pop it onto his back and cinch it to him with those ribbons, with those straps. So he does come with a solid amount of stuff. I again, don't think there's much that's I consider crazy and weird on this one, because compared to the other 3, a lot of his accessories are pretty tame, but he's also not a monster mashed with a turtle. He's a man mashed with a turtle, so it's a little bit different. He does come with some really cool stuff though, and I am happy that they included this as well. I still would have liked to have seen more translucent on this figure, but being able to change him up at least a little bit certainly makes up for some of that. And I do like this particular head sculpt. It's weird and goofy. It makes no sense whatsoever as far as a turtle goes, but it's kind of cool. So yeah, overall, this is a pretty solid figure. I will, however, say that this is probably my least favorite of the 4 turtles, and it mostly just comes down to the fact that the Invisible Man doesn't really do it for me as much as the others do in terms of mashing up with the turtle. That's pretty much all it is. I think it is a really solid mashup, though. They really did a good job of combining both things into a figure, so I'm not going to fault them for that. Don't get me wrong. I just think a Franken Raph or a Hunchback Leo or a Mummy Mike is a lot more fun than a Donatello with a few translucent parts in a trench coat. He does look really good, though. He's got some really solid articulation, despite the fact that, of course, some of it is hindered by this coat. But the torso really works. It's nice to see a little bit more range in a turtle, and then he just moves pretty well overall beyond that. Again, probably the coolest aspect of this figure is going to be that shell. It's fun. It's crazy. I really like seeing that. It's unfortunate it's on the back of the figure, but it looks awesome. So that's going to do it for this look at the NECA Toys TMNT Universal Monsters mashup, Donatello as the Invisible Man. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.